Alrighty. So yeah, it means a lot to be chatting with you because you're one of my favorite crew chiefs.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So my first question is where are you originally from?
I grew up in Port Monmouth, New Jersey.
Nice. I'm originally from Estes Park, Colorado.
Oh, no.
Yeah, have you ever been there?
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I've been to Pikes Peak when we raced there years ago, but that's about the extent of it.
Yeah. Estes Park is basically the Rocky Mountain National Park. Yeah. What made you get into motor racing?
My grandfather raced throughout the 50s and 60s, and then my father raced all through the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the early 90s. So I've been around cars pretty much my whole life, race cars that is. I started working for the IROC series in 1989. It was kind of like a vocational in high school.
Pretty cool. IROC, isn't that called the International Race of Champions?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Alrighty. What was working with Randy LaJoy like?
Randy was he was a character. He was a lot of fun to be around, but yet when it came time to race, he was very serious. You know, he wanted to win more than most people would ever imagine, especially for someone who's been doing it as long as he did. Because I kind of caught him on the part of it. Because with Randy, I don't. We could run more races if I was a little more seasoned, I guess you could say. Because our relationship was great. We're still great friends to this day, and he was a lot of fun to be around. You know.
Alrighty, pretty cool. What was your reaction to winning Daytona with him?
Kind of surreal. I guess because we had just really started that team that year. It was new. We had built almost everything from scratch, and working with Brian Patty and Eric Phillips and the people at Nemco, we had built two really, really fast cars that year. And when we showed up for Daytona, it really showed. And for me, I say this all the time. I don't know because I was so shocked and everything got so overshadowed because Earnhardt had passed away the next day.
Yeah.
I almost somewhat took a little bit of it for granted, and it was a hard thing. Like, I struggled with that honestly for a couple of years, where I don't feel like I respected it and understood it at that point in time like I should have. Certainly like I have now. 20 years later, I guess it's been.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I can kind of relate to that because when I was kind of in high school, I was briefly successful, but I kind of took it for granted, and then I went through a little bit of a rough period.
Yes, yeah. I think that year we won Daytona, and we had really good speed for the majority of the year, but things kept going wrong. We'd have parts break, or we had run into a couple of engine failures and things like that. And it never happens when you're running bad. It always happens when we were running good or in position to win a race. And I don't think it was until Memphis in maybe October when we won again that year. So I was, for myself, and I think our whole team at that point in time, we were all pretty humbled by what had happened. Like, oh my gosh, maybe we're not ever going to win again. So
yeah. What was working with Greg Biffle like?
Biffle he was a machine, man. The guy, he could drive anything, and he loved to go fast. And I'm trying to think of the right word to say. He enjoyed coming and driving in what was then the Busch Series, because he was, I mean, he was a powerhouse. So when he got in our stuff, we had just started figuring some things out before Randy had left, and Greg started driving. And then when Greg got there, he helped us kind of fine tune those things and make our cars better. And then, we kind of went on a spree there where we won a couple of races, and that was a lot of fun too.
That's good to hear. How did you get your ride with Kevin Harvick Incorporated?
So Delana is a friend of mine, was our PR girl. And when Randy was driving for us at Evans Motorsports. So in the background, we kind of felt like things were pardon me? In the background, things were kind of unraveling a little bit there at Evans. They were getting ready to make some changes and stuff, and Kevin and Delaney had called me and said, "Hey, we want to start a full-time truck team. Would you be interested in coming over and helping us start?" So I went over to Kevin's, and there was, maybe two people that had worked on. Kevin had late models for Delana's dad, and they had ran maybe one truck race or something, and said, "We want you to do this, take over it. Big Wrench is coming on board. Matt Craftson's going to come drive." And that it kind of just took off from there. It was a lot of work. I over my career, I've done several startups, I guess. I've done it in all three divisions from scratch. And it was a lot of work because Kevin pushed you to be the absolute best that you could be every day, because he could see stuff within you that you couldn't see within yourself. So he pushed you, and he pushed you all the time. I mean, sometimes to your breaking point.
Oh, that's pretty cool. What was working with Tony Stewart like?
Stewart, he liked to come over there and drive the Busch cars because it kind of got him out of the rat race. His biggest goal was he wanted to win a Busch race, right? Because everybody giving him a hard time. He had not won a Busch race, and then the year prior to that, in 05, we had built a new Speedway car, and I think Butch Hill achieved that at KHI and went and Stewart drove 2 or 3 races, I think, that year. And they won Daytona and should have had a shot to win the second Daytona, but got involved in a crash or something. But in 06, when I did it for Stewart, there was a lot of pressure because we showed up down there, we had no points, had to have speed to get in the race, but it also still had to drive and handle good. Back then, the cars were a little, like you could build one that was really fast, but it drove really bad, or you could build one that drove really good, but it wasn't very fast. So you kind of had to balance the two, and we didn't really handle that good, I think, that day, but we ended up winning the race just because Stewart was so good at the plate stuff, and he helped elevate our program because he could just give you tidbits of information that you could go back to the shop there after a race and then just kind of look at some of the data and stuff and figure out what we needed to do to be different, whether it was on the body side or the chassis side. So, having guys like him around they were always a big help.
Pretty cool. What was working with Bernie Lamar like?
Bernie was a good kid. Bernie had won a bunch of Winston West races at the time, which I guess now would be K&N stuff. And he was good. He was hungry. He was fast. A lot of times he had really good speed. Sometimes I would have to calm him down a little bit, but he was as far as a human being, he was one of the nicest, kindest human beings you'd want to be around. He was a super kid, especially for his age. He was mature beyond his years.
That's really cool. That sounds really cool to work with. So what was your reaction when you learned that you would be working with Ron Fellows for the road course races?
Well, I had a little bit I had a little bit of experience with Ron when I was at Evans Motorsports, which was kind of a sister team to Nemco. And Ron had driven the road course races for them as well, on the Cup side as well as the Busch side at the time. So I would go and help Brian Patty. I think at that time I was building shocks. I was crew chief in the Busch car, but when we went and ran the Cup car, I would build shocks for Brian Patty. So I got to be around Ron a little bit and got to know him as a person. But when you get someone like Ron Fellows to come drive your road course car at Watkins Glen, that you put so much pressure on yourself to win and to perform. He did the same thing like Kevin did. Like, he made you want to be the best that you could be all the time.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Did you hear that Ron was awarded the Member of the Order of Canada earlier this year?
Yes, I did. And in fact, when we raced the truck last year with Jordan Anderson at Canada, Ron was there, and I got to sit there and talk to him for maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so before the drivers' meeting. And it was just good to catch up because his whole family are just really super great people, and he was just he was just a great guy. He is. He's just a great human being.
Yeah, and I've always said if there was one driver that I wish won a Cup race, it would definitely be him.
Yeah, it's funny because Jeff Gordon beat us. I think it was in 2000 at Watkins Glen. We really had a shot to win that race with Ron, and Gordon just flat out, they just outmoneyed us or they beat us fair and square, and that was kind of a bummer. But I really felt like that was Ron's shot to do it.
Yeah, and I believe that was actually 1999 because...
Oh, yeah, that's right, because I went up there to help Brian that year. Yep.
Yeah, and now that you brought that up, I must ask, what did Ron say after finishing second in that race?
I'm not sure if I could say that. I could ad-lib it a little bit. Let's just say he was pretty bummed out. But he knew that he was up there, and I mean, that deal was that Nemco deal was so small as far as people and support, engineering. I mean, it was a handful of racers that went up there and just did we did the best that we could, or they did. I just kind of filled in, but they did the best that they could, and he was bummed, man. It was, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, especially when you come so close like that. Yeah, that's kind of tough.
Yeah. Those are hard to get over sometimes.
Yeah. What was working with Ron Hornaday like?
Hornaday is, to this day, one of my best friends. The best way I can describe Ron Hornaday is he made everybody that he worked with, everybody that crew chief for Ron Hornaday, he made us all look really good. Because the guy, in my opinion, is one of the best race car drivers I've ever been around in my lifetime. And I love it, and I'm not saying it because that we're such close friends. I'm saying that when I talk about people making you want to be the best, Ron made that part of it easy. Because all you had to do with Ron was get it close, and Ron could take care of the rest.
Pretty cool. That's great to hear. What was your reaction to winning Daytona with Tony Stewart?
I think I cherished that one a little bit more.
Yeah, I kind of assumed you would say that.
Yeah, I did. I remember my mom and dad were there for the first one, but everything had happened so fast, I don't even think I ever got to see him there, when it happened. But in 06, when we won Stewart, they were trying to rush me into the media room, and I was just kind of soaking it all in victory lane. Because we worked so hard. Like I said, we didn't have the greatest speed, and we didn't really drive very good. So we had, all day long, we worked on the car constantly. I mean, we were taking wedge out, putting spring rubbers in, doing very unorthodox things to help get the thing drive good. And we finally got it close, and Stewart said, all right, I'm close enough to make a run at it. And, lo and behold, he did. But it was that was a big day for KHI because if I remember right, I think the 77 with Bernie, they might have finished second or third that day. Remember, they were up there that close.
I think it was second.
Yeah. So it was a big day for KHI to be able to finish 1-2. And that was kind of the beginning of growing into multiple teams, whether it was the truck teams and the Bush teams. We were all working together. Everybody was really firing on all 8 cylinders.
Pretty cool. And what was Bobby Labonte's reaction to winning Talladega in 2007?
So I got a little background story. We had built that car brand new, and we were in the wind tunnel with it the night before it had to leave. And back then, you could shake the glass and the windows and everything so much. We had got pretty crazy with what we were doing with it. And I went to hit the windshield to kind of shape it a little bit different in the wind tunnel, and it broke the entire windshield out of it.
Oh, wow.
So we had like the midnight shift. We loaded everything up. I think we got back to the shop. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. The haul was supposed to leave at 7. And we worked all day and night because you had to build the windshield back then. And me and I think about 4 of us had built the windshield, put the new windshield in, and went down there. And lo and behold, we didn't have very good overall speed, but we had really good drivability. The car sucked up really good in the draft. And it was one of those weekends where you just felt like so much had gone wrong leading up to that weekend. You felt like something good was going to come out of it. So when Bobby won and Tony was pushing him, or actually Bobby was pushing Tony, which we were the first ones, I think, or them two were the first ones at the time to start doing the tandem stuff. And then when Bobby pulled out the path, it was like Stewart. I remember I had both cars on my radio, and I remember hearing Stewart saying, "He just beat me," you know what I mean? And then you hear Bobby go crazy on the radio because no one knew. It was so close, no one had known. And as years have gone on, I look back and I think about some of the races that I've won, and you kind of forget about in the moment you forgot about a lot of the things that took place. But now it's like I can almost relive those days, the entire day, from what I ate for breakfast that day to what it was like carrying it down after the race was over. It's just pretty special.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. How did you get your ride with Go Fast Racing?
So I did the deal with Bob Levine. Bob Levine had called me out of the blue. I was actually going to go back. I did my stint at Teddy's when I crew chiefed for Elliott Sadler. I think I did a couple races with Almendinger maybe. But I kind of got burned out. I'd been going 200 mile an hour all the time. I was pretty beat up mentally and physically. And Bob Levine had called me after that season was over and asked me to start to do the 95. That he was going to start this brand new Sprint Cup at the time race team. And in the process of that, I did some stuff with, like, we did some start park races, things like that. And then we ended up, Archie St. Hilaire had kind of got involved with Bob, and Bob kind of used me up or pinned me out, whatever word you want to use it, to kind of get me out there. And I did some races for Archie. And then after Bob and I had split up, Archie had asked me to come over there to do that deal with Jeffrey and some odds and end drivers.
That makes sense. What was the exact reason that Go Fast chose to kind of go back on a full season with Earnhardt in favor of multiple drivers that year?
I think it was Can-Am had driven it because Can-Am was a sponsor, so Can-Am they wanted a name like Earnhardt to try and sell their products and things like that. And Jeffrey being an outdoors guy and all the stuff that Jeffrey did, He kind of fit that mold really well.
Ah, alrighty. What was your reaction to Tony Stewart winning his upset comeback win at Sonoma that year?
Uh, that was cool, man. For for a guy, Tony Stewart is the definition of a racer. Right?
Yeah.
He wants to race. He wants to drive everything. And he could be the bad guy, and he could be the good guy. He could be whatever you wanted him to be, I guess, for our sport. So for him to win and to come back and win and to do what he did, it was, I think for everybody within the garage, it was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and it was kind of tough to see how his racing career ended because he kind of went through a rough period, it looks like. So I was happy for him.
Well, I think what happens is, and I mean, I understand where I'm at in my career, right? I made it longer than a lot of people have, but not as long as I want to, right? I still want to win. I mean, I'm at the shop 15, 16 hours every day. I still give it everything I got, but the sport changes. The cars or the truck, they drive different. They require different, not only techniques outside the cars to build them, but inside the cars to drive them. I mean, to me, Jimmy Johnson is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
It's the same guy, won 8 championships and whatever, I think he's won 84 races. But the cars have changed. They drive different. There's a feel there that he can't grasp yet, or you have to drive them different. And when you've done it for so long, I don't want to say it outgrows you, but it does kind of grow away from you. And it's for whether it's a guy that works on them, it's whether it's a crew chief or an engineer. It's evolution.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And I would have to agree with you on that. What was working with Patrick Carpentier like in that race?
That was very cool. And I remember Patrick. When I was at Everhams or Teddy's at the time, or Gillette, I'm not sure what the name was at that point in time. But Patrick was driving our Xfinity or Busch car, I think it was. And so I got to be around him a little bit because I kind of helped out on that deal. I was like the crew chief / car chief, but when the Cup guys, so Casey Kane drove, sometimes Kenny Francis would come over, or Patrick drove, and Mike Shipple would come over and just be there on the box, just to have the same guy talking to Patrick, I guess would be the best way to word it. But Patrick was cool, man. Like, he was another one, very super talented to drive, but he had not driven those cars in a long time. And even he had gone out and he had made some laps in practice. And we had pretty decent speed, but he was like, I don't know if I'm physically up to drive these things like these guys do every week. Because he really hadn't driven anything in, I think it was like 5 or 6 years. So we had our struggles, but we salvaged a good day out of it. You know what I mean? I think when it was all said and done, especially for the budget that we had with Go Fast and just kind of how we operated with everything. But I tend to, as my career has gone on, I look back at more of my relationships with these guys and, being friends with them and knowing and understanding how, as you get older, things change. Your timing's not the same, your reaction times aren't the same, things like that. As I've gotten older now, I can almost relate to some of their struggles and that part that's within you that doesn't want to quit. But Patrick is overall, I guess, back to the original question. Patrick, he's a good dude, man. He's cool. Like I have his number. He'll text me at Christmas or something. You know what I mean? Just randomly every once in a while. So it's pretty neat.
That's pretty cool. And let me think. Did you hear about the fiasco with Go Fast where they basically merged with Circle Sport Racing? Is Joe Falk involved in the racing operations for the team or no?
That I really don't know. I don't know what any of that's going on there. I really, I'm not sure. Like I know Joe a little bit, and I can't really speak for him, but I know Joe likes to race. He enjoys racing. He enjoys being at the racetrack. I mean, I've seen him there for multiple years now. So but I don't really know the extent of what all they have going on there.
Alrighty. How did you get your ride with Elliott Sadler's team?
So, Sadler's, yeah. I was the crew chief on the Busch car at the time the year before, the second half of the year. After I'd left KHI, Ray Abraham had called me and asked me if I would come over and crew chief the Busch car that we had over there. So we were trying to put a team together, some people, and I don't want to call it was like the best people. Everybody can say the best, but it was the best people that we could put to surround ourselves for Elliott to make a good run at it for Sadler. So I kind of started out the beginning of 2009, I think, as the car chief on that deal. And then it might have been midway through the season or just after the midpoint of the season, they decided they wanted to make a change. And Elliott and I had become very good friends. And he had asked me, he said, "Hey, why don't you come crew chief this thing?" And I said, "Man, I hadn't done one of these cup cars. You know, it was the COT cars at the time. They were drastically different from anything. I mean, the closest thing I could relate them to was the trucks. And then even going back further than that, I hadn't worked on the trucks in a couple of years, so I was very unfamiliar and I was kind of in an awkward spot. But I took over and did it. I had fantastic engineers. A guy named Mike Wolf was my engineer on the deal, and Wolf had kind of helped guide me through learning and understanding simulations. We were using simulation at the time. But Elliott and I, you know, we were good friends. We were good friends off of the racetrack. I got to a point, I think, the middle or towards the end of 2010, where I was so burned out because that cup schedule was so grueling and the demands of it all were 7 days, 60 and 80 hours a week sometimes just to try ahead. I felt like I could never get away from it. And it wasn't that I wasn't happy. I didn't want to, I felt like I wasn't doing the team a good job. You know what I mean? I felt like so I had kind of gone into, I had talked to Elliott a little bit, and then I had talked to Robbie Loomis at the time, I think was our GM, and I said, "Man, I can't do this anymore." You know what I mean? Like, it started taking its toll on my family, my girls at the time. I think they were 4 or 5, and I never saw them. And not only was it taking its toll on them, not seeing them, but it was taking its toll on me not being around them enough. So I asked if I could bow out, but there was no hard feelings with Elliott. I mean, I wanted to win so bad for Elliott because Elliott was an amazing road racer and an amazing picture plate racer. He was so good at those places. I would put him with the best of the best. I think we finished second in the duels in 2010, second or third in the duels in 2010. Kind of got shuffled out. We were leading for a while, and we led a bunch of laps in the Daytona 500 that year there towards the end. And same thing, kind of got boxed out and shuffled out. It was just it was unfortunate, and that's when I kind of realized that, you know what, man, I don't know if I really have any gas left in the cup race, and maybe it's starting to get away from me a little bit to where I can't be as good as I need to be,
Yeah, that's kind of tough. So how'd you get your ride with Levine Family Racing?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit. So I was kind of done cup racing. I kind of took maybe all of November off in December, and I was ready to go back Xfinity racing. And I think I was standing with Steve Turner. Steve Turner was trying to hire me for Turner Motorsports at the time to do the Busch car. I think they were looking for somebody maybe for I don't know if it was Al Guy or one of the guys they had driving over there. And Bob Levine called me and said, "Hey man, I want to start a cup team, and I hear you're the guy that I need to talk to." And I was like, "You got the wrong number, right? You got left now." But after I kind of hem-hawed around about it, Bob was going to run 10 races, I think, or 6 or 8 races maybe, and David Starr was going to drive. And it was, back then there was 50 cup cars would show up, and it was you had to be the best of the best to make these races. So it was hard.
Yeah.
And I knew the fans because Bob literally had nothing. He had a trailer. No, we didn't even have a trailer when we started. We had a handful of tools. Used some of my tools, pit boxes, some of my personal items and things like that. But it was a good start. And Bob and myself had become great friends. Bob has literally treated me like a son, and I really liked working for Bob. When I went to work for Bob, I thought that I would retire working for Bob. Not necessarily having to be a crew chief, but maybe moving on and being a competition director or a shop foreman for that matter. I mean, it really didn't matter to me because the Levine family, Bob, his wife Sharon, Melinda, their daughter, and Michael's grandson, they were good people, and they treated me well. So when Bob and I parted ways, that was kind of heartbreaking to me. Just kind of the way it all went down. I felt like it was kind of. I knew what Bob was wanting to do, and I couldn't devote myself the way Bob wanted me to devote myself. I guess at the time, he wanted to go full time cup racing. That was when all the charter stuff was starting, and I really couldn't bring myself to giving that amount of commitment because my family, means more than anything.
Yeah, that's good on you, man. And yeah. So yeah, I have 2 more questions left before I'll kind of let you have your day. My next one is what was working with Boris Said like?
Boris was a character, man. He was fun. Boris could flat out drive, man. And I mean, Boris to me was like an old school racer. Like he would just get in there and he could be real. He had a lot of finesse, but yet when it came time to be a bull in a china shop, he could be a bull in a china shop too. But he was charismatic, fun. That person that you see on television, that's the same person that you can have a conversation with. Whether it was good or bad or indifferent, Boris just enjoyed racing and driving in general. He's good. He's a really good, not just a road racer, but as well as he had a pretty good short track racer too at the time.
Yeah, and I always wished that he would have succeeded with the No Fear Ford that he used to drive for. Mm-hmm. I was always wishing that he would have succeeded with that because he really had something good going with it. You know what I mean? So yeah, my next one after that is which movie do you like best between Days of Thunder and Talladega Nights?
Oh man, is it just those two? Truck Racing is probably my favorite race. To me, it's definitely Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
Hands down. Talladega Nights was too much of a spoof. It was too. Maybe I'm too old school for Talladega Nights to be relevant to me.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah. Alrighty, this will be my last one that I'll ask. Do you support intentional wrecking in NASCAR or no?
No. Here, I'm from the age that if you have a problem with somebody, A, don't take it out on the race cars because I don't see any of them drivers at the shop fixing them. And B, if you're going to be a man about it and you're mad at somebody, then you go take it up with that person face to face after the race.
Yeah.
I don't support it. Whether you're, if someone's dogging you, if you're racing a local short track, you're racing a Bowman Gray or Hickory or places like that, Well, stadium doesn't matter. But if someone's dogging you and they're chopping you off or something, then you can move them and not run. You don't have to knock somebody out of the way or just, you know what I mean, be a total hack about it. And I've never been a big fan of that. I mean, even drivers that I've been involved with over the years, when they've done that, I've been furious about it. And I'm usually pretty level-headed. You know, I mean, the guys used to laugh and they'd call me Bob Ross because I was always so calm on the radio. But when it came time to get kind of amped up, I could be pretty amped up about it. So, you know, I would always let them know how I felt about that. That I didn't think that it was right. I think that if you're going to be a man about it, then you need to just handle it like a man and not like a child.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, dude. I'm really with you on that. I remember seeing Jeff Gordon do it at Phoenix a few years back, and I did not agree with the way he handled that mess with Boyer.
No.
I did not agree with it.
Right. And yeah, and I lived through the era of watching LaJoy and Buckshot Jones go at it every week. Now, as far as from an entertainment value, it's fantastic, right? But if you're one of them poor guys that's got to fix it, that's not fun, you know. And I learned that when I worked for Petrie and Schrader drove a push car for us. I think him and LaJoy got into it one time, and Schrader just shipped him. And Andy was so mad at Schrader because he had kind of dinged the fender up or something. You know, he wrecked our car really bad, destroyed LaJoy's. And it was kind of, I was like, you know, man, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's the right way to do it. So that's kind of, my dad was that way. You know what I mean? If you had a problem with something, you kind of handled it like a man, and you just kind of do your thing. You continue to handle it like a man. Don't use your car as a weapon.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All righty. Thanks for making the time for this, Wally. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that it was fun. I actually, there's not a lot of things that I'm not a big PR person. I don't, you know, I mean, I try to separate I do my job and then I want to go home and be a dad, be a husband, whatever. But I enjoy doing these things because they are kind of fun. It's when the people ask you the same questions over and over again and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Hey, I was wondering before you go, is there any way that I could get in touch with the Go Fast Racing team, like the executives for it, about an interview like this? Or
the only, and I don't have any of their phone numbers anymore, but I'll bet you that if you called the shop and asked for Mason St. Clair, Archie's son, his name is Mason. He's the one to talk to.
Alrighty, is there like a number for the race shop that I could get a hold of, or?
You might be able to Google it, but I don't have it off the top of my head. I don't.
Okay, no problem. I'll find a way to locate it.
Okay.
Alrighty. Thank you, Wally. I really appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
No problem, and I'll keep in touch with you about when my project comes out.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate it.
Alrighty, have a good day.
All right, thank you. You too.
You too. Bye. Alrighty, that turned out very well. Pretty cool.